Hey everyone, welcome to our second session video. Welcome to our fourth video, which is actually, in this instance, is our second video of our campaign, Just Revenge. As you recall, the first two videos, one was the backstory video, and one was the preamble campaign that we had, which was preamble one-shot adventure that was called Save the Hostages. So here we are in our second session of Just Revenge, and this is what happened. So we have a new character joining our host of intrepid players by the name of Arannis, played by Cole Bijonet, and he is also a first-time player at Dungeons & Dragons, and he did great in his first session. So Arannis is from the High Forest, which is also Arvindor, and as far as his backstory goes, he was abandoned by whoever his prior parents were. He's elvish, and he was taken in by an elven noble family, and he grew up as an elf noble. But he, upon reaching adulthood, he decided that he didn't want to be an elvish noble. He didn't feel right doing that. And so he fled the family home and decided to just live in the woods, live in the middle of the forest by himself for a while, as a hermit, just to kind of learn who he was. And he did that for a long time. When once he was walking next to a ravine, and he slipped and fell, and it was a very, very steep cliff, and he was about to fall to his sudden death, when just before hitting the ground he suddenly levitated and drifted to the ground without injury. So he realized that he had some sort of magic to him innate, and so then he decided to search the world over to find a teacher. And so he's been around to a whole bunch of places trying to find a teacher without much success. And then after a while he heard of a great wizard teacher called Veril Ruiden, who teaches in a city called Everland in the Silver Marches. And Veril Ruiden runs the School of Wizardry in Everland. So anyway, now that's the backstory. So Arannis arrives in Everland, and he sees that it's kind of all in disarray. The day that he arrives, the streets are really quiet. He heard people running away and screaming a little bit because they had heard there were two ogres that had appeared in the Bell Marketplace. And so, anyway, so he had just checked into an inn called Nadar's. It's called, I can't remember the name of the inn. The blurb will now appear now, showing what the name of the inn is. Which just happened to be, the inn is just across the street from the School of Wizardry run by Veril Ruiden. So Arannis was just about to walk across the street when he noticed there was a large troll in the middle of the city attacking people. There were four members of the town watch who were attacking the troll, and of course this is really unheard of. A troll would never appear in a city, so this is very unusual, in the same manner that two ogres had just appeared, just popped into existence at the Bell Marketplace at the end of our last session, which in this instance, in reality, in terms of the campaign time, was probably about a half hour ago. And so anyways, the members of the town watch are fighting the troll, and two of them go down. They're horribly dismembered and disfigured. The troll is huge, it's about 10 feet tall, broad and strong, and has a big battle axe, and it already had started to damage one building when the town watch had appeared. And then just down the street were three of our party members Grim, Nadar, and Icaros, who were on their way to Mountain Street, to the home of Dinvan Chavez, who is one of the town elders who had been murdered by this unknown assailant that they don't know about. So they're investigating the murder scene. So then they come around the corner and they see this big troll. And so then the battle ensues, and so Arannis uses his firebolt cantrip and shoots a big bolt of fire at the troll, and which hits the troll, but the troll laughs. Oh, it's nothing. And Grim and Nadar run up to engage with the troll, and both of them hit the troll for actually some pretty good hits. But the troll laughs further. It's like, ah, that was nothing. Is that all you got? Ha ha, puny small creatures. And they would see that there would be a big, that big slash in the troll, but then the wound would heal up almost immediately as soon as they did it. So obviously, not only do they have to fight this very huge opponent who's killing members of the town watch very easily, but it's also healing itself as it's being fought. Icaros is in the back using his Eldritch Blast, which is very helpful as well. And Grim takes a couple big hits, and he is weakened by the troll. And Nadar sees that things are looking grim for Grim, and Nadar sneaks up around behind the troll and attacks it from behind and does a lot of damage. And the troll, realizes that, and turns around and then just basically grabs Nadar with both hands and crushes him. Nadar goes unconscious, below 0 hit points. Nadar, the troll, does try to bite him, but it breaks off a tooth trying to bite into Nadar's really thick dragonborn hide. And but what they have discovered is the fire damage that is being inflicted by Arannis' firebolts is causing the troll not to heal. And so, in pretty quick order after that, between Icaros with his Eldritch Blast and Grim with his axe, and the Town Watch, and one of the Town Watch guys got hurt. His arm got cut off when the troll took a big swipe at him. But the guy managed to hit back with one of his spears. So, anyways, long story short, the troll was killed, and then members of the City Watch did show up after the troll was killed, and one of them was a healer, and had brought Nadar back up to being conscious and had a few hit points, so he was back in action. And then, but curiously, right after this had happened, and our heroes are enjoying, meeting this new person, Arannis, starting to talk to him, and but Grim hears, and actually everybody does, hears out of the at the side of the street, sees this. There's this dwarf. And he yells outside, yells to everyone and says, "Grim, you're an embarrassment to the family. You're a failure." And, and says, "You are worthless." And then he runs into this tavern, that whoever this dwarf was who said that. And then Grim, upon seeing this, and Grim, if I explained before, he's kind of mentally unstable. He had spent about a year all by himself in an underground dwarven outpost because the rest of his dwarven team had been killed or died in starvation and disease. So he was mentally unstable, and also in part of his backstory, his family and brothers had been killed. And so somehow this dwarf that he saw looked exactly like his brother and said that he was a failure and that he was worthless and a disgrace to the family. And so this caused Grimm's mind to snap. And now he doesn't even know who he actually, I think he does know who he is, but doesn't know anything that's happened to him, doesn't know any of his history, doesn't know anything about himself or the people that he's with. So he's like blank. And, but the party is starting to find this out because they don't know what's happened. They just saw some dwarf yell some things at Grimm and just see him stop, drop his axe and just stare blankly. So that's what's going on with Grimm, Icaros, Nadar, and this new character, Arannis. Meanwhile, across town, Kaelin and a rack store went to the Temple of Saloon to make preparation for the town elders who are supposed to spend the evening at the Temple of Saloon in protection to protect themselves from this sinister undead force who has so far already killed 2 members of the town elders in the past 2 days. So Kaelin and a rack store arrive in the Temple of Saloon, and it's a really nice temple. Kaelin has been working there as a member of the one of the priestesses of Saloon for a long time, and so she knows the area very well. And so she goes to see Cynthia Harbright, who is the high priestess of Saloon. And so she goes up to the quarters of Cynthia, and inside she finds Danessa Lightwater and 2 other priestesses very distraught in there, looking over the body of Cynthia Harbright. And so they talk to them and find out that Cynthia is actually not dead, but she is asleep and no one can wake her. And furthermore, one of the priestesses says to Kaelin that Danessa Lightwater had been in there earlier in the afternoon that day, and what was seen entering Cynthia's room earlier that day and then leaving that day. And then a little while later, when one of the priestesses went to see Cynthia, found her in this slumbering condition. So Kaelin, is talking to Danessa. So Danessa Lightwater, so just a little bit aside, Danessa Lightwater is now the default high priestess of Saloon because she's the second-ranking member. But Danessa has always been a scatterbrained kind of person, never really been, not good at being in charge or anything like that. And she basically is the second in command, the new acting high priestess, because she's been in the temple for 50 years. She's a human woman, who is in her 60s. And so anyways, back to Danessa. So Danessa swears that she did not enter Cynthia's room at all that day. In fact, that she had left earlier that day to go to Bell Square to secure provisions and stuff like that to get ready for the oncoming High Harvest Tide ceremony that will be happening in 7 days to make preparations for that. And then when she came back, she had heard about Cynthia being unconscious. So they're all in a big, they're very distraught about what's happening. Danessa is saying that she was not there. And then in the midst of while they're talking, Tenny, who was the little boy who was in the Save the Hostages, one-shot adventure shows up with his father, who the party had, and younger brother, who the party had rescued from the goblins, southwest of Everland, in our Save the Hostages adventure. And once again, thanking Tenny was thanking Kalen, so much for saving his family's life, and if there's anything that he can do to let them know, and that was kind of it as far as that transaction goes, and that they would go back into the temple and they were going to pray to Saloon, for their mother. Okay, so that was what was going on with Kaylin in a rack store, just kind of hanging out there. Just helping Kaylin. Now our other three party members, Yelenia, Adri, and Thea, were visiting the death site of Shenzo Gage on Stan's Law Street. So Shenzo Gage was one of the advisors to Cale Moorwalker, and Cale Moorwalker is the chief elder of the city, and he's also the commander-in-chief of the Army of the Dale, which has ridden out to the east to combat the massing orc horde. So Yelenia, Thea, and Adri arrived to this medium-sized but very well-to-do home in Everland, and they encounter Shenzo's husband of 10 years, a person by the name of Evander Amblecrown. And Evander is a human of Tetherian stock, which is medium build and height with dusky skin, and so they arrive at the home, and also in the home is the chief police inspector of Everland, Dorn Moorcraw. And so he's actually in the house running his investigation because Shenzo Gage was just killed the prior evening. So when the party arrives at the home, they hear a lot of singing going on because Evander sings a lot. And they hear a song that's very sad, and it's singing about someone's lost love that fell down a well. They do talk to Evander. You can see he's distraught. He explains to them. And also he's cooking at the same time, and he explains that he loves to cook when he's sad. And so he's making this wonderful beef stew and wonderful stew, and he talks to Thea and Yelenia and Adri while he's making this food, and he explains that he and Shenzo had a big argument just yesterday, and Shenzo would not explain where he had been the prior night, as he did not come home until the early yesterday morning. In fact, he'd been gone a lot, especially since the Army of the Vale had left Everland. And Shenzo was withholding his affection from Evander. Evander could not stand being with Shenzo, and he stormed off to his mother's house that last night. Then Evander cries, and he's saying it's probably because of the stress that he's been under as advisor to Cale Moorwalker, with Cale being away from the army with the Army of the Vale. But then when Evander returned the morning, Darvin Stent was at the house with the members of the Special Security Force, and that Shenzo had been murdered in his bed by an intruder late last night. And Shenzo's body was being removed as he arrived. He wanted to see the body, but they would not let him see the body because they said it was dismembered in a very state that he wouldn't want to see it. Which was curious to the party members, because when they met with the town elders, just pretty much an hour prior to that, the town elders had said that both victims had been strangled. So this is kind of at odds with what they're hearing. So they do talk to Dorn Moorcraw, the chief investigator of Everland, and he's suspicious. He obviously asks the party for the credentials, and they show the special permissions notice that they have from Malvin Draga, giving the party members rights to be able to investigate this whole mystery throughout Everland. And so Dorn Moorcraw is very annoyed that the town elders would not let him examine the bodies, and he's the chief inspector. So something's going on, that's for sure. So Yelenia and Adri and Thea ask if they can search the house. And so while they're searching the house, they manage to find in the window frame of the upstairs room where Shenzo's body was found, they find 2 long white hairs. And so that's their clue. And so, they take their leave of Evander and Dorn Moorcraw, and they head to the Temple of Saloon, where they're supposed to meet up in the evening to prepare for the town elders who are showing up. Meanwhile, Nadar, Grimm, and Ikaros, who are now joined by Arannis, go to do their investigation, and they are to investigate, as I was saying earlier, they're to investigate the death site of Dinvan Chavez on Mountain View Street, when they were almost there when they had to fight the troll. So Dinvan Chavez, he was a sergeant of the guards. He kind of worked under Malvin Draga. He was the first victim killed, so they show up at the home. It's just a modest home, and living there are Dinvan's wife, Pyra, and 2 daughters, Tasha and Truly. And they're all humans of the Damaran stock, and Damarans are of moderate height and build, and with skin hues of tawny to fair. So they talk to Pyra, and she's kind of interesting, just a normal woman. She's just interesting about her. She's got 2 different color eyes. One's blue and one's brown. And she's very distraught and views things in a negative light. And she's very suspicious of the party members, but after a while, when she gets to see them and they're definitely concerned for making things better, she does open up to them. And she said that in the recent days before her husband's murder, Dinvan became quiet and distant and was short-tempered with their daughters. And she said that he used to play with the daughters all the time, but stopped after the Army of the Vale left town. And she would say that he was always busy, but really in this past few days, since the army had left town was at stake, now that the Army of the Vale had left town, and he would not see him usually until the morning. But she understood, these were obviously scary times that are happening here, and the town needs security. So she understood that, but just how distant he was acting was really bothering her. And she would also say that she thought Malvin Draga was at fault, maybe at fault because Malvin was frequently trying to get her husband to look the other way over occasional business dealings that Malvin would have. And Malvin Draga is like the town business magnate kind of person. He's also in charge of the town watch, and is one of the senior elders of the town. So a very powerful person. So when they talked to her about the night of the murder, she said that on the night of the murder, she was sleeping in bed with Dinvan when she was woken up by something that was cold and very strong that lifted her out of bed and thrust her out of their bedroom and closed the door. And then outside the door were 2 bony things that would not allow her to re-enter the room, and she couldn't see because it was a new moon that night. and so it was just very, very dark. She heard some banging in her bedroom with Dinvan in it and a muffled cry, but she couldn't get through because these bony things would not allow her to re-enter. So she immediately thought of her two daughters and ran into their room and found them unharmed. So she grabbed both of them and ran from the house. And when she ran out of the house, she found that the house was surrounded by zombies and skeletons and shrouded in a foggy mist that she could see dimly by the nearby streetlight. The zombies and skeletons did not appear to attack her, and so she ran to get help. And she feels racked with pain, racked with guilt, like she should have done more, but she had really tried her best, and she knows that. But she wonders why someone would kill such a good family man and member of the community like her husband. And then when she returned with two members of the watch, the skeletons and zombies were gone and the fog was gone. But Darvim Stent was there with members of the Special Security Force, and they would not allow her to re-enter, saying that it was a crime scene. And they took out Dinvan's body in a shroud, telling her that she did not want to see her husband this way. That the body was, too damaged. She wouldn't want to see it. And she said that the funeral was held earlier in the morning at the Noble Cemetery that's near Silvery Moon Gate. So then Thea and Adria and Yelenia go and examine the house, and underneath a floorboard under the bed in the house, they find a key, a note with the words scribbled on it, Hem Armor, and a ticket, which looks like, which is a ticket for Raven's tailor shop. And it says on it, repair one pair of breeches brown with bronze buttons, one silver piece for Dinvan Chavez, and it's ready on the 21st of Eliant. So they got a clue. And it's now the 23rd of Eliant. So that was very interesting. On their way back, so Adria and Yelenia and Thea are on their way back to the Temple of Saloon to meet the rest of the party members, when they encounter a group of 5 Special Security Force members who are escorting a prominent good family of Everland for questioning. And then when they're walking down the street, the family members recognize Thea, and also just recognize them as they are the people who just saved hostages the prior day that had been captured by goblins. And so they start to plead, we didn't do anything wrong, we're not being taken here, we know when people get escorted by special security forces, they don't come back, please help us. So after a discussion with the member of the Special Security Force and showing their credentials, and Thea, Yelenia, and Adri convinced the Special Security Forces to leave the family alone and head off to, and so the Special Security Forces leave, and the family is so grateful, and they tell the family to go to a local inn. I don't remember I think they told them to go to the Old Sword Sheathed, and that they would reconnect with them later. So, other interesting things have been happening this day as well. In this current day and the prior day, and by the way, at the beginning of the whole session, Adri was in the shape of a big brown bear from her prior session, but that wore off, and she, reverted back to herself when she had showed up at Shenzo Gage's house. She was in the form of the bear, this big brown bear, which was kind of a funny moment. But anyway, so Adri has noticed that yesterday and today, that a hawk, which seems vaguely familiar, had been flying overhead in the city. which is kind of unusual because the city usually is like pigeons and all that kind of stuff. She seems like she might recognize seen the hawk before, but she's not entirely sure. So that was kind of interesting. So the party members all eventually reconvene at the Temple of Saloon. And so while they're there for a little bit, just waiting for the town elders to show up, you know, it's now probably about 7 p.m. at night. Icaros goes to the bathroom and encounters Boethius in the bathroom. And the only reason why anybody of the party members know that is one of the other party members is going to go to the bathroom too when they see Icaros walk out with both Boethius, and but they don't know anything about what happened at that point because shortly so they don't know anything about necessarily what happened there. So the party members wait, and they wait, and it's like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and still the city watch, the town elders have not shown up. You know, it's late Eliant, which is kind of like September, and it's getting dark soon, and so it's in this northern climate, it gets dark around 4:35 p.m. at night, so it's been dark for a long time. And so the party they're suspecting that the town elders are not going to show up. When Tenny runs into the Temple of Saloon saying, "Quick, you got to come quick! There is fog that is in Hobbiton, the north, in Hobbiton in Everland, which is in the north western part of the city." And he says, "There's fog there, and there's been there are zombies and skeletons reported. Hurry!" So that was the end of the session. Who knows what's going to happen. All right, so anyways, thank you very much, and catch us next time for our next campaign video of Just Revenge.